What's a little promise between friends really worth? Steve Hartman found out on the road.
Steve Morris is waiting for an old friend, hoping this guy he hasn't seen in years and completely lost touch with will suddenly appear, just like he promised 40 years earlier.
I can remember Joe reaching into his wallet and pulling out $1, and he tore it, and I got my half, and he got his half.
And the point was, no matter what happens, in 40 years from this day,
we're going to be back here.
You saved this for 40 years?
Saved it for 40 years.
They each left the bar that night with half of the dollar bill. On one side, they wrote that day's date, 4/4/76. On the other, their far-off reunion date of this past Monday. Growing up in West Palm Beach, Florida, Steve Morris and Joe Whitehead were best friends. They even went on a cross-country road trip together in this contraption. But that was then. Shortly after the trip, Joe moved away and they lost touch. Decades passed, but all the while, Steve held on to his half of the promise, hoping Joe would too.
If he ever even cared. I didn't know.
What are the odds of him
Caring enough?
Like, not many guys would hold on to a half a dollar bill
Yeah.
from some drunken night 40 years earlier.
Those odds have got to be astronomical.
And yet, guess who showed up at the bar this week? Right on schedule.
Hey, brother.
How you doing, man?
I'm so happy to see you.
I'm so happy to see you, too.
A few months ago, Joe called Steve out of the blue to remind him of their date.
I think if you're the real Joe, you're going to have the other half of this guy.
I do.
Astronomical.
I just happen to have it right here.
It means so much that he had the same thoughts.
I just went under the broad assumption that since I did, he did.
This is such a pleasure.
It is so cool.
The old friends spent a couple hours turning back the clock,
I went for electrical engineering.
catching up on family,
There's our daughter.
and making plans for the future.
I already have a dollar bill.
The new one is dated 4/4/17.
You're only shooting for 1 year?
He's old.
I'm 63. I don't even buy ripe bananas.
At one point or another, we all lose track of at least some of the people who made us who we are. But Steve and Joe prove it's never too late to reconnect.
I mean, if there's one person that you'd like to talk to, go back and talk to him. If they're not around, you'll regret it.
Bet your bottom dollar.
To 40 years.
Steve Hartman,
40 years.
on the road in West Palm Beach, Florida.
The definition of true friendship.